All right, Jimmy Ott and Paul Stone talking college football with you on a Tuesday. Let's get right to it, Paul. In the high volume games, the best matchups in college football, where you'll be watching, where you want to have a little action. Georgia Tech and Pitt. Georgia Tech at home in Atlanta. Night game downtown Atlanta. 2.5 over the Pitt Panthers. Boy, the freshman quarterback Heinzel took a step back last week after 5-0 record, straight up and against the spread. Man, he only had 3.6 yards per attempt against Notre Dame, a pick six that extended the Notre Dame lead to 14-0. Now Georgia Tech has hit a little bit of skids as well. Their 2-game road trip to Raleigh, where they got beat by double digits, and then Boston College, where they trailed in the fourth quarter, needed a long field goal, a come from behind win against Boston College at Chestnut Hill. Concerns me a little bit, Paul, but coming back home, I think they'll be settled. I think Haynes King, they've been zeroing in on this game. They almost got caught looking ahead. There's no doubt. I mean, I did not expect them to have that much trouble in Chestnut Hill against the Eagles, but I'm looking at Georgia Tech to settle in at home, the mature team, senior leadership against a young quarterback who'll be making another road start, who did well. Heinzel did very well in that first road start at Doak Campbell again, and Tallahassee at Doak Campbell against Florida State and a win there. But both you and I, both on the Yellow Jackets here to advance to the ACC championship game.
Yeah, I tell you, Georgia Tech gets off to the 8-0 start, Jimmy, before this recent two-game downturn, if you will. But the 8-0 start, probably they were doing it a little bit with smoke and mirrors, probably fortunate to get out of the gate 8 games undefeated. Both these teams, as you mentioned, coming off subpar performances. First of all, Georgia Tech trailing by 11 points entering the fourth quarter. They rally behind Haynes King for that 36-34 victory over Boston College there in Chestnut Hill to keep both their ACC hopes alive, as well as, more importantly, perhaps their college football playoff hopes alive. Meanwhile, Pitt, they fell behind early, never really challenged en route to losing to Notre Dame 37-15 on the road. Since it was a non-conference game, however, Pitt remains in the chase as well for both the ACC title and playoff aspirations as well. Looking at the ACC standings, Georgia Tech and Virginia currently tied atop the league ladder at 6-1. Pitt and SMU a half game back at 5-1. You look at this line, Jimmy. Georgia Tech favored by 3, or favored rather by 2.5, I should say, on their home field. That infers really that on a neutral, Pitt would be favored by 1.5. And I just don't personally see that. I think Georgia Tech, even though they have slipped a little bit in recent weeks, I think they're the better team here. And I think they're the better team because of their gutsy senior quarterback, Haynes King, and their coach, Brent Key. First of all, looking at King, he's a throwback, tough guy, leads the Yellow Jackets, first of all, in passing, 2,259 yards, 73%, almost 9 yards per attempt, 10 touchdowns against just 2 interceptions. And then on the ground, leads the Rambling Wreck in rushing as well, 807 yards. So he's probably going to have, or potentially anyway, going to have a 1,000-yard rushing season, 5.5 yards per carry, 14 touchdowns on the ground. So he has played a role in 24 of the Yellow Jackets' touchdowns this year. And one thing really important, because he handles the ball so much, he only has 4 turnovers all year. He's thrown the 2 interceptions. He's only lost 2 fumbles. So 4 turnovers at this point in the year, as much as he handles the ball, quite impressive. Looking at Key, since taking over as Georgia Tech's head coach versus the interim coach in the middle of 2022, Key is now 26-18 against the spread. That's a pretty 59% percentage if you're keeping score at home. So they have outperformed public expectations under Brent Key. I think he's one of the better coaches in all of college football. Interesting little side note here. In games with a line of 4 points or fewer, whether they're the favorite or the underdog, Georgia Tech 3-0 against the spread this season. I think King and company are going to get it done at home. I like the Yellow Jackets minus 2.5 over Pitt Saturday in Atlanta.
For Haynes King at Georgia Tech in his 3rd season, this will be his 32nd start. So 32 starts will make it. They'll make it 32 starts this Saturday for King. This will be game number 8 for Martin Heinzel. So I mean, big game. Well, I think that King is a little bit more prepared for this moment than Martin Heinzel. And we finally saw a little bit of that freshmanitis, I think, in the first. And listen, he was pressured, sacked 4 times, but pressured a lot. Notre Dame was a step up in class, and it just looked like it was a little bit too much. You had the Yellow Jackets coming out a little bit stronger line than this as also. So wonder if there's still some public money on Pitt after covering their last 5 out of 6. So we both on the Yellow Jackets. A prime time game downtown Atlanta on Saturday night, 7 o'clock Eastern kickoff. Log into your BetRivers account each Saturday to receive 2 profit boosts for same game and standard parlays. With the profit boost dependent on the number of legs included. See the BetRivers app or website for full details. Let's go to the Big Ten. And boy, the CBS got a good one here, though. They've been a little bit light in the quality of some of their broadcasts this year, but they've got USC and Oregon. USC goes into Eugene, and well, it's now a 10-point favorite now, double digits. It crept up from 9.5 to 10 at Bet Rivers yesterday, and well, the thing is that the USC 2-2 straight up on the road, 1-3 against the spread. Their only cover, Notre Dame missed an extra point in the fourth quarter. That's the only way the Irish have covered. I mean, sorry, the Trojans have covered one of their 4 road games this year. Oregon, and a lot of coaches say a lot of things that I just disregard. So kind of you'll saying is you want to hear a coach lie, stick a microphone in front of his mouth. So anyway, he talked about being a line of scrimmage, team. What line of scrimmage program? He wanted to be more like Georgia, going over to Oregon. He thought they were soft, thought they were too finesse. Talk is cheap. Well, he's done that as well, and I think that's the biggest thing. And listen, USC afforded everything. We're talking about these coaches jumping around right now in the college coaching carousel and resources and budget and everything. USC has given Lincoln Riley everything. As I mean, he just hasn't gotten it done to the level. But here they are with a nice 8-2 record going to Eugene and in position to they probably control their own destiny to get into the college football playoff. A win here would be a big, big step in that direction. So maybe a play-in for these two teams. So anyway, Oregon, that's where the big advantage is here. It is a line of scrimmage. It's not just talk. They have committed to being more of a line of scrimmage team, and they want to run the ball first. We know how tough they are at home. We know about uh, USC's issues away from home. So it's not a Big Ten geographical road trip for the Trojans, but still it's a road trip nonetheless. Their last trip last year to the Pacific Northwest, they came out a short loser as a favorite against the Washington Huskies. So I just think it's the old adage. You got to start with running the ball and stopping a run. And Oregon has a big advantage of running the ball and stopping a run. I'm going to lay that big number, -10, Paul, against USC.
Yeah, I mean, 2 weeks ago, Oregon, goes into Iowa and they beat the Hawkeyes at their own game. You're talking about they want to be physical, they want to run the football. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I mean, Oregon, gained well over 200 yards rushing against Iowa. Just ran the ball up and down the field and really stifled Iowa's running game for the most part. So they a little bit different than some people might. Those who have perhaps put the Ducks in a box as being kind of a stylish team that can't play physical. Those days are gone at the present anyway. I haven't joined you at this point on this particular play, but based on Southern Cal's recent road woes, probably almost a no-brainer probably to play Oregon in this case. Since the beginning of the 2023 season, USC now 2-11-1 against the spread in true road games. Depending on what line you got in the USC Notre Dame game, I'm counting that as a push at 10,
Okay.
but you could have got 10.5 as well. So just they haven't been good on the road. There's no question about it. They've got one of the most dramatic, distinct home road dichotomies of any team in college football in recent years, because they have been quite good both outright and against the spread at home. As just a little side nugget here for people to put away. Again, they've been good against the spread at home, not so good on the road. If a person since the start of 2024, so since the start of last season, if a person had bet USC against the spread at home in every game, and then faded or bet against USC in every true road game, they would be 18-3 overall against the spread. So just an incredible dichotomy there. I guess goes under that "wish we knew then what we know now" category. But Oregon hadn't joined you yet, but it's got to be Oregon or anything. USC just not the same team on the road. Oregon playing good football.
18-2 before Saturday, before they failed to cover against Iowa, and you would say that certainly wasn't traditional home weather conditions. Man, playing in the puddles in the Coliseum against Iowa. They came back and fell a little bit short. Yeah, the closing line I cited was 10.5 between that Notre Dame and USC game.
Mhm.
So that extra point would have made a winner or a loser, but there were some 10s, as Paul said, as well. Bet Rivers players who place a same game parlay of at least $10 on NFL or NCAA football games will receive an entry into the weekly Squares game. Winning Squares can earn up to a $50 bonus bet per entry. See the Bet Rivers app or website for more details. Speaking of home and away splits, talking about the USC Trojans, I'm at this BYU team, and I've always thought that they had a little bit extra home field advantage because of the altitude, and they always pack their stadium in Provo. This year, I think it's more extreme, and I have a theory. It's because of their young, true freshman quarterback, Bear Buckmeyer. He's much more settled. Is usually the case. A young quarterback, an experienced quarterback, is going to be much more settled at home. He wasn't. I've been on the right side of BYU. Well, we like Texas Tech in that spot. We think Texas Tech is one of the top 5 teams in the country. That was a big ask for BYU and that young quarterback to go in Lubbock in that environment, and it proved that way. Probably probably was worse than the final score indicated in that game in Lubbock. Then they come back home and he's settled and they destroy against a really short number, only -3 against TCU. No contest. They rolled. But is BYU ready to take the step on the road here, Paul? 2.5 at Cincinnati. Cincinnati, are they wearing down a little bit? Because their last couple of games against Utah, they gave up 29 first downs and 480 yards. Against Arizona, 24 first downs and 475 yards in a loss to Fafita in the Arizona Wildcats at home. So just wondering about if that team's wearing down just a little bit over the course of the season. Line is neither of us have an official pick here, but your thoughts on this matchup, BYU 2.5 on the road at Cincinnati.
Yeah, first of all, just backing up real quick, I had USC at 18-3, playing them at home, fading them on the road. Actually 17-4. So I want to make that still really good, but I wanted
Okay.
to make that
Okay.
slight correction there. Looking at this game, I was fairly, you mentioned Cincinnati's recent downturn. I was fairly optimistic about the Bearcats entering the month of November, but obviously it hasn't been, the new month hasn't been kind to the Bearcats to this point. As you mentioned, the back-to-back losses, first decisively at Utah, a real beatdown out there in Salt Lake City, and then losing at home last week against Arizona. At 9-1, you've got a BYU team that's still in the thick of the college football playoff chase. To me, this just kind of feels like the type of game that the Cougars win. They've already won in places like Arizona, Iowa State, and East Carolina. So they've won at similar type opponents as far as quality of opposition. I would say my lean is to the Cougars. The one thing kind of keeping me from backing the Cougars, 100% is I'm a little bit conflicted since, Cincinnati sort of fits the profile of buy low that I pretty much subscribe to, because I think you're getting Cincinnati at a pretty good price this week. But I'm likely going to pass because I just have, feelings or thoughts about supporting both sides here.
All right, let's move on to the SEC and look at this matchup in Oklahoma with the biggest win of the weekend. They on the road against Alabama, and they didn't win the box score. There's no doubt about that. They had a +3 in a turnover category, and it was big, including a long pick six. But Oklahoma wins it outright in Tuscaloosa and on a field goal. Speaking of their place kicker, Sandell, between extra points and place kicks and field goal attempts this year, he's 49 of 50, 28 of 28 from extra points, 21 of 22. Paul, 50 plus, 7 for 7. Now, don't enforce the knee pad rule on him because he's all but wearing a swimsuit out there when he's kicking. But Kirk Herbstreit and Chris Fowler had a little fun with that in the Tennessee game where he was 3 for 3 from 50 plus in that game. He's a weapon. Man, when you got a kicker like that, you can play field position football. Venables knows how to do that. They're so sound on defense. And if they get you to make a mistake, man, they're hard to overcome. So now they come into back home. All they have to do is hold serve. Missouri this week, LSU next week. They'll be favored in both of the games. I think by both similar points. I think just over a touchdown. This line was at 9.5 when the true freshman Zollers, who, let's face it, Missouri, they handed the ball off. And I talked about last week that Mississippi State's rush defense was the perfect recipe for Ahmad Hardy in this rushing attack. He ran for a cool 300 on 14 yards of carry against Mississippi State. But the line was at 9.5, and then Zollers has been scratched, Pribula. And if you look at it, they they ran the ball against Missouri ran the ball against Mississippi State over 80% of the times. They did not want Zollers to beat them. And why not when you just hand it off for 14 yards a carry as they won easily? So now Missouri goes in Oklahoma, but instead of making Zollers, who came in relief for the first time this year in Nashville and did okay, this would be his first true road start in a hostile environment. Eli Drinkowitz says, nope. Pribula, he is expected to start. So he gets his quarterback back after that ankle injury. The line goes from 9.5 down to 7.5, Paul. Oklahoma laying the points after a favorable outcome, but it's kind of the way they play. They're not going to beat themselves. Mateer, since his injury, is running at a higher percentage than throwing. And man, that defense, it's just hard to put long, sustained drives against them.
Yeah, Missouri's Ahmad Hardy, the Louisiana Monroe transfer, had 300 yards rushing last week against Mississippi State. I don't think he's going to quite get to 300 against this vaunted Sooner defense.
No.
Not going to get, probably be hard to get to 100. And that's a good defense. And Oklahoma, obviously, they took a huge step towards gaining an at-large berth in the college football playoff by virtue of this past weekend's 23-21 upset victory there at Alabama. In Tuscaloosa. The Sooners' calling card's been their defense all season, no question about it. And this past Saturday was no different. You mentioned the fact Eli Bowen scores on an 87-yard interception return in the second quarter. That was one of 3 turnovers forced by Oklahoma. Offensively, they didn't turn the ball over, so the Sooners +3 in that critical turnover category. You mentioned the kicking game as well. Oklahoma wins the kicking game. That standout kicker of theirs, Tate Sandell, makes all 3 of his field goal attempts, including a 52-yarder. Meanwhile, Alabama's place kicker, Connor Talty, he had a 36-yard field goal attempt blocked on the final play of the first half. So they win the kicking game as well. And Oklahoma, those are facets of the game. They were certainly deserving, but as you also mentioned, Alabama, by almost a 2-1 margin, outgains the Sooners and out first downs the Sooners. 406 total yards for Alabama, 212 for the Sooners, 23 first downs for Alabama, only 12 for Oklahoma. So dominated the game statistically, but not on the scoreboard. Oklahoma only gains a touch, again, of just over 4 yards of play. But again, they prevail. They play that bend but don't break defense. They win the kicking game. They win the turnover battle. So then, they played their formula, played what they did what they had to do to win the game. Certainly optimism that Bo Pribula, as you mentioned, is going to return at quarterback from Missouri. He was hurt 4 weeks ago almost at Vanderbilt, and that loss to the Commodores dislocated his ankle. That would certainly be a plus if he's close to 100% and indeed does play. So I think it's going to be, like you mentioned, Oklahoma victories over Missouri and LSU, and they're in the playoff. I think needing to win, though, as I've said before, I think sometimes it's a little bit more of a curse than a blessing, if you will. Low total in this game, I think, of 43. I think it's going to be a tight one. I think Missouri is going to keep it, try to turn it into a rock fight, keep it close. One of us is going to be on the right side of this one for sure, but I'm going to take the Tigers +7.5 over the Sooners.
I was all ready to fade the young quarterback with his first true road start in a hostile environment. But the word on Pribula, and I mean, Drinkowitz is pretty much a straight shooter. We'll see, but he's expected to play. And we saw that line movement. It certainly, that line movement for 9.5 to 7.5 reflects that. But I'm ready to take Pribula now. I think he'll be much more suited to handle this stage than the freshman making that first start. I mean, when you look at some of the head scratch, hey, man, Ty Sims has been really good this year. What was up with that Florida State game? Well, that was his first true road start. Man, CJ Carr's been really good this year, huh? Well, the Miami game was his first true road start. So it is an angle that has really been, and not just this season, but historically, a really good one. Throw it out the window because that rare angle that you could have used in this spot is now gone with them elevating Pribula to the expected starter. Let's go to the SEC, stay in the SEC in Florida and Tennessee. And well, what damn team's going to show up? I mean, that was not the same two teams, Florida teams that played in Commonwealth in Lexington and got housed there and gave Ole Miss, top 5 team, all they could handle, and maybe the Lane Kiffin sweepstakes. Ole Miss thought if they won, they could keep their coach. Stay tuned to that. Well, just check his Twitter account, and you might be able to get updated on that. He loves that social media. But anyway, Florida, it's going from Tennessee's going from a 3.5 to 4.5 point spread. So you're trying to figure out if Florida's going to show up. Last year, they were in the same spot, and you know, uh, one thing about Sunbelt Billy, you give him credit. He kept that locker room together and they kept playing hard. They had a chance to beat Georgia. They did beat LSU. They did beat Ole Miss, knocked Ole Miss out of the playoffs last year. But then, the game in Lexington. Well, maybe the game against Georgia and Ole Miss got their attention a little bit more. One thing about the Florida Gators, and I know there's a lot of transfers, but the Florida fan base and everybody associated with Florida, they want to beat Tennessee. Trust me, they want to rain on their parade. So I think the crowd is going to be in it. I think the players will feed off of that. And I expect a big kind of last stand for the Florida Gators here against Tennessee. So I know that their overall season, listen, part of it is schedule related. Swap these two schedules, and you might be swapping the doggone. I do not. My power ratings have Tennessee that big of a disparity with Florida. Can't take away the Kentucky game. It was terrible. Kentucky doesn't blow out anybody, and they sure blew out Florida that night. I think the Gators got their attention. I expect a big effort against a heated rival. I'm taking Florida plus 4.5, Paul.
Yeah, I thought Tennessee would probably be maybe just a shade under 3, maybe 2.5 point favorite in the Swamp on Saturday. So it's a little bit higher, opened as you mentioned at 3.5. Now bet up to Tennessee minus 4.5. And I'd really love to join you and make a stronger case for the home underdog, Florida getting points here. And I still might. But man, it has been a season-long mash unit for the Gators. Their injuries have just been incredible. Their wide receiving core has been almost wiped out. I mean, 2 of their top receivers, Eugene Wilson III, Dallas Wilson, both out for the year. Their top receiver, another true freshman, Vernell Brown III, he's questionable on Saturday. They've also been impacted defensively, but I'm concerned with their ability to keep up with a high-octane Tennessee offense that's bound to gain some yardage and score some points. Florida did keep it close last week against Ole Miss, but you look at the yardage battle, Ole Miss 538 yards, Florida only 326. So a little bit of a gulf there between the two teams. Again, it's Florida or nothing, because the home dog just is a little bit attractive here. But again, the injuries kind of keeping me off of it. And at the present, even though I say it's Florida or nothing, it's probably a hard pass for me.
All right, it's been a while since Tennessee has won. So last time they won in the Swamp was 2003. So been quite a time since. So history on the side. That's been a tough place for the Tennessee Volunteers to get a win down there. Even Peyton Manning and that crew could not win in the Swamp. All right, Paul, you're looking at this group of 6 now. So it used to be the group of 5, now group of 6 entry into the college football playoff. One of those candidates is James Madison. And James Madison, well, how'd their last coach do in his new coaching outfit? Pretty damn good. So this coach is pretty hot as well. playing Washington State, and the Washington State has tried to put together this schedule. Great job calling Washington State last week and then laying the points against Louisiana Tech. That was an easy cover for the Palouse in Washington State. And last time Washington State went on this sort of week and a half field trip down to the southeast, they're pretty damn good. Oxford and Charlottesville, they stayed in the southeast. They didn't go back and forth once from between the games in Oxford and Charlottesville. They covered in those two games against Ole Miss and Virginia by a combined 44 points. So they lost by 2 in Oxford. They lost by 3 lost by 2 in Charlottesville, lost by 3 in Oxford. Now they come in here as 14-point favorites, but you think that jet lag may finally come into play here. And also, they're not good. The Washington State, after giving Virginia and Ole Miss that scare, I don't think they're going to catch James Madison by surprise in this one, Paul.
Yeah, as you mentioned, JMU, one of the top group of 6 contenders for that spot in the 12-team playoff. Looking at Bet Rivers odds this morning, North Texas, among those group of 6 teams, has the shortest odds at minus 112 to make the playoff. JMU, the second choice among group of 6 teams, at plus 190. So they're right in the thick of it. JMU comes in with a 9-1 record, only played one Power 4 school this year, and that was their game that they lost to Louisville in week 2. Lost that game on the road 28-14. But JMU actually led 14-6 early in the third quarter. The game was tied at 14 entering the fourth. So a very competitive contest. JMU, they've got, after this Saturday, facing Washington State at home. They're going to travel to Coastal Carolina to close the regular season. Then on December 5th, they'll play for the Sun Belt Championship as the East Division champion. They'll likely host the league's West Division champion, which has yet to be determined. The Dukes, without question, they've got to win all 3 of these final games to be in consideration for that group of 6 spot. And I think the committee, I think they might give a little bit of attention to a decisive victory on Saturday over Washington State if JMU can indeed accomplish that. You mentioned the 2 trips east earlier this year. You go to Ole Miss, you go to Virginia, one in the Central Time Zone, one in the Eastern Time Zone, travel across country, lose those 2 games by a total of 5 points. Could have won either or both. Very impressive showings. So if JMU can take care of this same Washington State team in impressive fashion, I think it would bolster their resume considerably. Their offense has really been humming the last 4 games. That offense led by their quarterback, Alonzo Barnett III. Last 4 games, JMU averaging 52 points a game. I think they're going to aim for a little style points here. I like James Madison by more than 2 touchdowns on Saturday over Wazoo.
Style point opportunity for the Dukes in this one. All right, we do it every Tuesday and Thursday. Don't forget our friends at the 10 as well. They break down the Big Ten like nobody else can. Doug Kazarian, Greg Waddell, and Troy Macker. So that's every Wednesday and Friday. So 4 straight days of picks, analysis, angles, and information here on the Sports Better's Paradise in the Bet Rivers YouTube channel. So, College Sports Rush YouTube channel brought to you by Bet Rivers. I'll get it straight. All right, for Paul Stone and Jimmy, I will see you on Thursday right here on the College Sports Rush YouTube channel.